that I'm gonna learn from Joanna and Khalid a beautiful information, and especially Joanna, طبعا she did this beautiful interior design for this lovely exhibition, and Khalid طبعا he did as well a beautiful design projects as well, and now Joanna will be happy to share with us her go ahead, Joanna, and this is the
two-handed. Okay. So I wanted to do kind of a quick introduction of my journey. I trained as an architect. I worked many years as an architect. But the thing that bothered me the most about architecture was that the history of architecture is all about natural light. So all the devices of architecture, courtyards, windows, porticos, it's all about natural light. And what happened when the light went off? In the old days, they went to sleep. Now we live 24/7. So I started working with integrating lighting into architecture. And when I was working for 20 years at Sottsass Associati in Milano, we had opportunities to integrate a little bit, but there was also a lot of side gigs. So I was designing furniture and decided that was one way to kind of surreptitiously get lighting into architecture by putting light in the furniture. So this was a table. Whoop. I went one too far. Okay. So at a certain point, the architecture itself became part of the lights. I started working with having very, very minimal amount of material and using paint to become part of the light, part of the architecture. So you had this fusion of light and color and architecture, where the architecture is actually supporting part of the light. We took that to extreme. This is a piece with an artist called Ana Teresa Fernandez. She's a Mexican artist living in San Francisco. By the way, I live in San Francisco now. And it was a conceptual piece, which I like to do very much when we have this opportunity. It was to use, again, the minimal amount of material, the thinnest you could have, which would be paint and a black light, in order to have this luminous piece on the side of a wall. This is a project in Singapore. It's the Freeport, and there's actually a plant wall behind this. So the idea was to try to get this effect of bioluminescence. So again, all the projects have some kind of concept idea behind it, but you would have these plants that are sort of look like they're lighting up themselves. It's actually a device using light to become part of nature. So as you can see, my work is not particularly naturally, inspired in a way, but everything is nature. This was a project where the people, which is nature, are the dynamic element, because it's an elevator tower in the San Francisco airport. It's a public arts project. And there's light on the bottom of the cabins, there's light on the top of the cabins, there's lights in the shafts on the top and the bottom. They're all programmed, but what makes the piece really come alive is when people take the elevator, and then you see the light going up and down, and it becomes a dynamic piece, and it's always different, because the people are moving in different ways. This was another Freeport. It's a huge cavernous space in concrete. It's in Luxembourg, this one, and they asked me to design the lighting. So what I wanted to see if conceptually I could do one thing that would be nice lighting at night and look good in the day, because the problem with most lamps is they look horrible when they're off. You have a beautiful light at night, but in the daytime there's this thing. So these are lights during the day. Did it change? Oh. And they're mirrors in the daytime. So they bring in more light from the skylights in the daytime. And this entire building on the inside is actually illuminated by these panels. Again, it's a single element concept. This is a restaurant in New York in the Museum of Art and Design. I did just the lighting. And the idea was not, again, to put chandeliers, but to make a light ceiling. So using light and color and transparency to create a part of the architecture, a light ceiling. It's called sakura, which is cherry blossom. So they're kind of like hanging cherry blossoms. So this is a slide from the Milan edition of Time, Nature, Love, the Van Cleef and Arpels show. And I wanted to show a little bit of context of the original edition so that when you go to the Riyadh edition, you understand the difference in the inspiration. The concept was to have the exterior, the envelope be part of the dialogue. So we have a dialogue between the curatorial narrative of Alba Capillieri, the masterpiece patrimony collection from Lise MacDonald of Van Cleef and Arpels, and then Palazzo Reale in Milan, which is a very, very decorative building. It has a certain number of rooms, there's frescoes on the ceiling. So it was a completely different context. We didn't have to design the architecture, we just had to go in there and show it, light it up, make it come alive. And what makes it come alive mostly is the jewelry. Sorry. Okay, and then, oh, we don't have the slides of, anyway. This is a piece I did for Noor Riyadh, just in November. And it's a walk-in chandelier, so it's an architecture and a light and a color experience. So the idea was to create another little world. You walk into the chandelier. You normally can't walk inside your own chandelier, but you could in this case. So it became an event more than just a visual art. It became more like an architectural thing.
Amazing, amazing.
Another shot from Milano in the frescoed room. So you see the difference, the contrast between what we have here. And that's
now we'll go to Khalid. Joanna, thank you very much. Beautiful.
Just checking about what's this one?
The right one, yes.
Okay. I'm architect Khalid Hanedi. Still doing architecture till today, I'm actually we're working in. It's more about designing and building, design and build solutions from, let's say, past 7 years. We have a great clients. We have a great talent that has worked with us in the company that I created in 2014. Just to explaining what exactly we're doing, we're still till today we're doing. Actually, we're focusing about to build we're being like a bridge between the imagination and reality, and we're trying to focus to be moving that kind of ideas and kind of let's say imaginations to something reality. And we believe that as an architect, if there is something it's not exist, you cannot touch it, you cannot experience it. This is going to be only imaginations and only dreams. You don't, let's say, feel it. And I believe that all the interested work we do with the interested team is also included in interested clients, and that's one of the things that we're keeping saying. If we have a good project that we're let's say do it as one of the projects that we're actually displaying here in As-Souda. That's because we have a really good clients in that time, and we have a great team. They can reach to us to bringing that kind of thing. And I believe that in that project we name it Sahu, and in that project when we starting thinking about how we were starting doing that. Let's say project, we should understanding what exactly that the goal of that main project, and it's a summer house, and that summer house is located in As-Souda, and the most higher place maybe in Saudi Arabia here. And we're understanding that when we visit the site in the beginning, the most important thing actually in the site is the nature of that place and the topography that's creating in that area. And we believe in that time also, wherever we can work in something like this and building something is more, let's say, interested, it should be integrated with the nature that exists there. And we don't, and we believe in that kind of, let's say, thinking and way of understanding that's the goal and the place that we work in it. It's the most important thing when we're starting designing and also to construct that kind of project. Yes, I saw one of the most maybe projects is near to me, exactly, because it's for my father's house, and that's why it's amazing client. And yeah, and that's and he's, to be honest, he gave me a freedom to do whatever we think that is should be happening there. And that is sorry. And we're trying to also to reflecting something is very important in that kind of project. I'll go back.
One more.
Okay, you can stay here. We want to reflect something is very important in that project, that when we're speaking about traditional way to build or traditional, let's say, materials that should, we use in that project, that is not meaning that the building should be very traditional or very like we can represent it in a way that is more modern and way in the temporary, let's say, feeling, and also to explain that the space with the materials it should not be very, let's say, we're using a lot of materials, two kinds of materials. They can give you really good space with the natural light, yes, but you have lighting for night also at the same time. Yeah, and also to presenting the understanding for let's say modern thinking in a with a let's say cultural touch at that time. Yeah, you can see that we're using in that time that the old technique for building that this kind of wood, and this name it is Ras Arabic, and we keep it as is, and because it's really interested, because it's natural, it's something from the, and we cannot compare, we cannot, let's say, found something is better than using this kind of, let's say, material. Another side we have in the same area, another project. That's actually that project we get this project because we have that project in the beginning. And then when they visit us in that time, Suda company, they ask us about who's we get this project because we have this the first one as Soho, and they ask us to design something that's similar to what we're doing and that's all. But the briefing is different. The briefing, they needed to be done in 2 months. Yes, design and build and exist there. Yes, and it should be presenting that let's say that cabin. You can see it in Saudi Arabia, and you can see it whenever in any kind of places. They have the same natural, let's say, approach. And that time, we're understanding one of the main thing in that project, that if we wanted to build something in 2 months, we should think more about how to build it, not how it should be look like. And to understanding that kind of thing is very important. We keeping saying from that part is, or that kind of design, it's not about the designing, it's about the process, how we build it. Because that location is actually in a place, there are no water, there are no electrics, there are nothing. Meaning about it's only land, and we cannot touch the trees there and the nature. We should keep it as it is, and we come in an idea that imagine that what is something in the nature that is there, and it's not affecting that, and we come an idea about the bird, and eagle, that the eagle, Sagar eagle, yes, yeah, fountain, yes, in fact. It's named Shaheen, and the idea about that kind of name, and we're trying to think about in that time, that is all the time that kind of bird is being in the topest, highest areas, and when they came to this kind of place and get out from there, then nothing happened. I mean, it's become the same, let's say, occasion, and we were starting thinking about this kind of idea and try to designing something that we can build it in factories and ship it to the site without building on the site. Okay, and that we keep saying that it's actually it's setting in the mountain. It's not building in the mountain, and we try to make it also like a shape with like a different shapes and modular. everything is in that project is systems, meaning system on top of another system, meaning about we didn't have any work in the site, painting and this, no, it's only layer on top of layer on top of layers. And that's the thing, and that is the most important thing, that's how we think to build it. Because sometimes if you have any good ideas and you cannot build it, for us, it's not something it's intentional, or this is not the, and we cannot build the trust also for your clients to reach to that goal. And yeah, and after that we're getting very, let's say...
amazing, amazing. Well, I thank you, Khalid. Yani both of you, you're sharing a challenge during your design projects. Yeah. Joanna, bil 2019 when you did this beautiful vitrine in Milan. Where is, I'm sure you find some challenging between the space in Milan and the space here?
Well, quite different. So the vitrines for Milan were, the rooms were huge, first of all.
And
so,
painted with the mural?
Yeah, they were designed very architecturally. They had to have a presence, but they also had to mostly be homes for the jewelry, because as we keep saying, the exhibition is the jewelry, and the rest is the world around it. So the jewelry is the main, you know, it's the client, basically. So the vitrines are part of that. It's an architecture, a small architecture. And then within the Palazzo Reale, they were the thing that was actually bringing the light. So the light from the top and the bottom was all done by the vitrines, whereas here we built an architecture.
The flow
inspired by the tradition of soft nomadic architecture that you have here, which the reason to do that isn't a romantic thing, it's because that kind of structure, as you're talking about, it sits lightly on the earth. And in here, we didn't want to bring, you know, really heavy walls and all this. So we worked very hard to devise a system that was a much lighter interpretation. And it's coming from the tradition here, you know, as is the color coming from tradition here. So
the nature of this area, that you made sure that it will go with the same flow.
Exactly. Same with the color, which is, I don't want to say the word sand because everyone here rolls their eyes when there's a desert, yet another desert reference. But, you know, that's the color of Riyadh. It's this beautiful sand color. And the color is coming from the sunrise and the sunset and the clouds, I mean, I think. So that's a natural thing. That's a phenomenon that you're getting. So we tried to have that same spirit inside the exhibition.
Khalid, I'm sure you consider this the nature of a Suda when you were doing the project, putting things...
To understanding more about, keeping saying that when we're speaking about nature, and we're trying to we have a discussion before that if we think about the nature as something and that human is another thing, and we should, and we all the time that we're thinking that we will take care about, let's say, the nature and trying to engage with that. I believe that we're starting thinking about nature, we should understand that we're a part of that kind of thing, the nature, meaning about it's nothing, it's not speaking about their nature and their people, and that's we're trying to take care about this kind of thing. If we believe that we're working, we're a part of that kind of thing, and we're trying to just, what we're trying to do, we're good in to do more about connections, or building, let's say, some experience through this kind of nature, and for sure, yes, it's something that's important, something that we try to and I think we cannot compete with the nature, because this is something that we're trying to engage more or work with what is there.
Well, Khalid, at your project, you're looking at the nature and your client. Your client is the human. Joanna here, and you consider the nature, but your client is the piece of jewelry.
Yes. For me, the client is the piece of jewelry, but I have to kind of go back a little bit where the colors we've used and the colors in my previous work, yes, it's inspired by the sunset and the sunrise and colors, but these are very digital colors, and in fact, that is something that really attracted me. I mean, I started doing these one-off pieces in the mid-90s, and at the time I was on the screen a lot with the first video games that were coming out and later Second Life, seeing these colors that actually don't exist in nature, so man-made colors. And you know, I would, as an architect, you would probably go through the Pantone book, and I would do that, and it would be totally dissatisfying because I wasn't finding the colors I wanted until I got on the screen, until they had light with them, and then you were seeing this brightness of color, the quality of the color, which we can get from light.
Yeah, and actually we can recognize it more about when you have natural light to see this kind of color. But this is one of the things that really I feel that in the space now, because the space in fact is the material is only one color, but the lighting gives us this kind of feeling, or this kind of experience when you come and really kind of understanding when you visit, and I'm sure that everyone they will visit that's the exposition. When you come to this inside this kind of spaces, you understand that the most important thing in the space is the journey. And if everything surrounding, it should be, let's say, helping or let's say presenting that kind of pieces. Because and correct me if I'm wrong, if we're trying to compete with that kind of thing, it's going to be something that's going to work. Like what we're trying when we're trying saying we cannot compete with the nature, for sure. But we should engage. We should, let's say, trying to build this kind of experience. And we're trying to just think all the time when we're trying to put anything that we're creating a product, that product can make you more enjoying the nature more.
The pieces that you use inside.
I'm saying no, but I'm saying if you imagine that the cabin that we design it's a product that make you more enjoying what you're seeing in nature. Because we're trying to, we know as an architect what's the best angle for the sun, where the lights come, and where is the best views, and we're trying to, let's say, creating that kind of connection or kind of the spaces to give you that kind of feeling. You went inside the space to another space. You have seen, let's say, kind of frame for a natural, let's say, side of our images, and that's what we're trying to create. We're creating more space about connection, experience that give you, let's say, presenting or showing the nature in, let's say, in the best way.
Like a dialogue.
Yeah.
I have to ask him a question. Did you camp on the site before you designed the house?
To be honest, if it's in the studio, yes, but if it's in Riyadh, to be honest, yes. And that kind of thing also that's also to understanding and to be knowing about in Riyadh when you're trying to design, let's say, a building or a house. There are a lot of guides and a lot of things happening in this kind of area. You never can do something interested. Why this project is interested? It's the location. It's not the architect. The location that makes those places really more interesting. Imagine if you have a land, yes, in the street, and whenever you can do, you cannot changing a lot of things. There are some guides, some limits. In the end, you're gonna have the box solution, and we're trying to get in that kind of thing. What we maybe heard this a lot. We're converting the building to be looking more internally. And this is something from our nature. When we have this kind of courtyard internally, it's looking inside because there's nothing interesting outside. And that's kind of understanding to, and speaking about Riyadh. Yeah.
When you say the difference between here and Souda and Riyadh, because
I try to explain it here in Riyadh. Maybe when we're trying to have a client, we're designing, let's say, a house for a client. We're saying the most important thing is the family. We should look at the family. It's something internally. It's more about looking externally. I'm saying that's why we're trying to just give for us some guides to building that kind of guide. Because when you're starting designing without having any kind of, let's say, directions or kind of understanding, that is hard. Because I cannot say, to be honest, in the clients and having small land in Riyadh and saying, oh, this is a very interesting view you have. In fact, we cannot control this kind of views, tanks or whatever is happening. What we're trying to do is understanding what is our situations and how to present. And we're trying to, all the time, we're saying we're presenting the family, the main areas.
How do you do the study? Yeah, do you sort of like, I'm sure what we're seeing here, Joanna, I'm sure you went back to the history of each piece of the jewelry, sort of like to know how to display it. Is it is it similar to what Khalid's saying, that he have to go back to his client and to know the lifestyle, the background?
Well, for each piece, honestly, there was such a strong curatorial narrative by Alba Capellieri that part, the organization of the pieces in thematic areas, that was determined, but within that, we took those themes. For example, visibility is one of the themes that Alba did. So from that theme, the showcase is kind of fading out. The pieces look like they're coming out from nothing, you know, like an apparition. We put an aurora borealis behind it. So it's
teamwork
it's
together.
Very much a teamwork, and with the guidance of Lise. It was very much a teamwork. And, you know, that said, we were talking earlier, the scenographer, the architect, you have a vision, but the vision first is a product of all the different influences that have come before. And then once everyone agrees on that, it's the execution, which is also quite important, which is why I think you doing design and build is fascinating.
Exactly, because that's one of the things we discussed before, that we're doing design and build because we think that we have a very clear goal and to want to reach it sometime when clients reach to us, starting from the beginning. But collaborations and teamwork, that is something very important, because you cannot do everything by yourself. But you should have someone that creates for you some, let's say, guidance, some goals, some directions, and that is going to help everyone in that kind of collaboration or a team to reach to the main goal. Because, sorry about saying that, but working with a team without goals, you cannot reach to something. Meaning about if you have a team that a lot of people that's working together, and everyone is really amazing, and every have his let's say his background and his field, like saying architect, interior designers, but if that's not having some, let's say, directions or have some guides, that should be our goals. It's clear. I think it's very hard to do a collaboration at that time. That's why we're keeping saying there are value for the creator. In the beginning, when say, okay, this is the creator, he knows exactly when to reach.
Khalid, أنت كdesigner, you don't mind to go into detail to know the people who are going to live there, or do you have your team could do that?
For sure, anyone taking that kind of information, they can do it in the team. But in the beginning, when we're speaking about details, we do, in each project that we're starting, and I think any designers, they have a very they have a very, let's say, our side seeing everything is relating in the beginning. You know, we didn't go to the details. That's why I'm saying in the beginning, but in the end of the project, all specialized people, let's say interior designer or as an allied designers or a lot of, let's say, engineers, it's going to work. They will go more details with the clients if the clients need, and this kind of thing. But in the beginning, we have looking in the project. Imagine. I hope that I can do it in the future. If I'm going to design, let's say, like an exposition. The lighting is something very important. That's the value I'm saying about we have a creative. They know what they do. They will pick really a good designer, light designer. It's better if they have a background as an architect, and they can feel it like in space. They have this in the understanding that how the flow, how the cases, how this work, and also they will take care about all this kind of sector but before they didn't have, let's say, directions. I think it's very hard to also give you a briefing to starting working in that kind of thing.
Well, one thing I need to say about the lighting. So with Elise, we worked on the project and created a series of renderings. And honestly, these renderings were like my most wildest fantasies of lighting effects. So to go from a rendering to what you see there was actually a very good professional lighting designer named Umberto Vita Filzi. He's Italian, and his company is Voix. And so he actually translated this into that. So that said, I was awful because I kept showing my iPad during the setup saying, yeah, it's exactly, it's right, you know, which is a terrible thing to do. But you know, you have to have some ownership of it. So because of the world of digital, in my case anyway, you can get these effects on an iPad with a rendering because it's digitally conceived. You know, my colors are these digital colors. So from an iPad to the real thing, you can get very close, whereas in your case, particularly with the natural light, you would have to be simulating the earth, basically.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the value for that kind of, let's say, now using technology and that kind of thing in designing, testing the lighting, testing also the kind of shades, kind of materials that in the building, in the stages, not in the site, in the, let's say in some software, rendering software, etc. But yes, again, that kind of, let's say, 3Ds that we presented, it's not creating by no one's in the office actually in that time. We're outsourcing in that time, and we're working with another specialized in 3Ds animations. But we give him the guide how we want to go in that kind of area. Without this kind of guidance, without the kind of reference, directions, they cannot do that kind of thing. Meaning, it's collaboration work.
Yes, as a teamwork altogether.
Exactly.
Tell me, as a designer, now what we're seeing, a beautiful project inspired from the nature around us. Is all design, when they are inspired, take from the nature, are they giving something to the nature?
I hope that designers are being inspired, because it makes it so much easier. If you were to start from a blank slate, tabula rasa, and invent the world out of nothing, it would have no context, it would have no history, it would be a very difficult thing to do as well. But when you have such strong history, which in our case, besides the patrimony collection itself, and the curatorial narrative, which is very strong, and the fact that we showed it originally in Milano with the Palazzo Reale. You were talking earlier about layers. You have these layers of information coming on. So then coming to Riyadh is an opportunity to layer right into the concept Riyadh, the beautiful color, the softness of the light, very special light. And I'm from San Francisco, where the light is everything. That's the most defining part of San Francisco, is actually the light. So when you're taking this kind of inspiration, it makes it very easy. If I had to do it on the moon and I'd never been, didn't have any concept of what that was, it would be very difficult to be designing in a box, designing without context. You can't really design without context, I think.
Yeah, and also that one of the, I'm saying just one of the most important thing you can see it in nature is the time. Timing is really showing you the nature, actually. If there are no sun, or there are no night, you cannot experience that kind of thing. And also, if you go, you can just give an example of if you sung small tree, saying, but if it become bigger, you're gonna see it more interested. Why? Because the time give it more about values. Also, the connections between that kind of, how the connection and how the integrate with the let's say with the land, and that's why we're keeping saying when we understanding the nature, we can understanding where is the beauty of thing, and the beauty of that about the relations, and that also as a human, the beauty of our let's say culture, or it's the it's more about how we collaborate, how we communicate, and how we let's say integrate together. And this is the beauteous part of that kind of nature, because if you think everything it's a standalone or something that's not together, there's no beauty for that. Meaning about the experience, that's the most important. How we, as an architect, we're just trying to presenting that kind of thing about experience, but in fact, it's the relations what you're trying to just to build. And you can hear a lot about people saying about, yeah, we're more focusing about details, but in fact, we're not in details. We're focusing more about the connections, and that's the beauties of the thing. Because if you connect something, it's and that's how we cannot compare ourselves. I'm saying about the designer with the nature, because the nature is doing that kind of thing by let's say, I don't know how to explain it, but by default, meaning what is everything you feel like it's design, it's connect, it's together, it's work. You cannot, and if we're trying to let's say, to reinvent this kind of thing, we cannot reach to this kind of, let's say, natural relation or this kind of, let's say, for beauty. And that's one of the things that I'm keeping saying about we should understanding more about what when we're looking at attention, where we're looking. Some people speaking about, okay, the colors, it's the most beautiful thing. But yes, the color, but the connection between the colors, how it's work, how this is the gradient, that's how it's giving the, and you can see it also how you're using the light. But the beauty is not the light, how the gradients of the light, yes, and the connection between both light, and yes.
Joanna, when you were saying, you know, designer, if they be inspired by the nature, they will be. You were just saying, mentioning something, and you know, it's so important to be inspiring from the nature.
Yeah. So, inspired by the nature, the surrounding. I like the idea very much that you're talking about experience, because when you do an experience, and we've been talking in the last few days about the idea of world building, which is a concept, you know, coming again from video games or the metaverse and all that, your world building. But that happens anytime you put a human in something you've designed. And when I think about the exhibition, I think, well, anyone coming to the exhibition is voluntarily, hopefully, coming to a museum, and they're expecting a certain kind of experience. But for example, when you do an installation in elevators at an airport, it's very complicated because you don't know why they're going to the airport. They may be going to the airport because they're going to get married, but they also may be going to the airport because they have to go on a business trip. They may be really late because they, you know, left their house too late. They may be with children. You have to design something that is not too aggressive, that someone can understand, that even if they're distracted on their phone, maybe they stop for that 7 seconds that they're in the elevator and they, you know, oh, something's going on here. So it's the time aspect that you were talking about. You can't expect someone to do your timeline. You have to understand that people will be having all kinds of different experiences as they go through what you've designed. And that's a huge responsibility.
For the designer, when he
For
designed.
the designer, to think about that, yeah, to understand that everybody's in a different situation. Somebody has a headache, you know, somebody just wants to get out of there. Some little kid is hungry. You know, you never know. Whether you've got to give an experience where
Yes.
everybody has something.
And people or human like to enjoy this kind of thing. Also in technology, when we design, when how you sometimes you like your, let's say, your phone, how he's smart, he's understanding you, let's say, or communicating with you, and that kind of thing is it's about also the experience, meaning about between you and the device. Also in each kind of thing, I'm not saying about it's only with the, let's say, with kind of thing, but people focusing about more about the experience more than the let's say the project, because you keep using a lot of, you heard a lot of people now speaking about AI, are saying, okay, wow, it's amazing, it's always interesting, but the interesting thing how they communicate, how they experience, it's not more about the information. That kind of thing, understanding as a designer, so understanding where is the beauty of the thing, that's make the design, I'm just saying that it's going to make it more really enjoying and more, and you feel that kind of thing, and that's what we're seeing here exactly in the space.
Perfect. And I'm sure I just received lots of WhatsApp from the audience. They have lots of questions.
Oh.
And one of them, the WhatsApp I received from the couture interior designer, Ammar Al-Mdar. Where are you, Ammar? Raise up your hand. Okay, hi, Ammar. Ammar, you have a question. Ammar, تفضل. Shall we bring the microphone جنبك? Okay, microphone is coming. طبعا anyone is welcome to ask questions, but the interior designer Ammar Al-Mdar, mashallah, he kept
greetings to all the panelists, Nawaf, Mohandas Khalid, and Joanna. And thanks for the National Museum for hosting such an amazing panelist talk. Mixing jewelry and nature, or design and nature. With much respect, I've seen both of your work, Khalid and Joanna, and Nawaf. I know I'm very familiar with your work, but how do you translate the language? How do you find the essence of translating a language of nature to the language of the design?
I'm sure it's you, Joanna.
Well, in the case of the exhibition, the language of the nature, again, I apologize, but it's Saudi, it's the desert, it's the colors of the desert, it's the big sky here. So this is already a very specific, beautiful and profound nature. So to go in and try to get the essence of that feeling without having it become, like a Disneyland with sand or something like that. This was the question. So, we worked a lot with mock-ups and things like that to get this feeling, a little bit the feeling of this background of the nature, but translated into physical space that people can go through. One thing I didn't mention, it's not nature, but it's culture, which is, if you see a plan of these walls, the curves are, which you can do anything with curves, but these curves are actually inspired by Arabic calligraphy. So you will see some moves that are very much in calligraphy, Arabic calligraphy geometry. So the inspirations is, if you can have an inspiration for every design choice that you have to make anyway, you should use it. It's there for you to use. So it's much easier than just putting random curves or organic forms, I think.
Any questions? خاتبة تجاوب.
Yes, and also I'm just adding something about how we translate that kind of thing. And sorry, I was saying that about, again, we're going to say about the connection between that, and we're trying to just not adding more about the nature, to use the nature of what in our, let's say, design, in designing, but to try what I'm trying to explain, if we cannot translate exactly what is the nature's meaning in our, let's say, in our field, I'm saying as an architect, we can reflect, and also we can integrate that kind of thing with that kind of nature, because if we trying to present it, and we say, I'm just giving an example about the old areas in Diriyah. Like all the houses in that area, you feel like it's a part of the nature. It's a part. It's connected to the land. You don't feel like it's a building on top of the land. And this is one of the things that you can understanding that something naturally people used to do that kind of thing, because they see the trees. The trees is part of that connection between the land. We weren't adding. We just let's say using the same material and trying to building and that kind of thing. Meaning, if we try to translate it, we should give more chance or give more space to the nature to be integrated with the building, and that's what is, I think, how we try and translate it.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Khalid. Yep.
Yes, question here. So,
microphone.
Yeah, I have the. Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, here.
Hi.
Hi, Joanna. This is Mahmoud. So I have a question for Joanna and Khalid. So we'll start with ladies first. So Joanna, and thanks for sharing your art pieces with us. So in terms of, do you have a plan for a project in Saudi with outdoor lighting, but for the nature, not building related? And in terms of lighting installations on nature, like with the different topographies in Saudi, like special special topographies like Al-Ula or in the south of Saudi in Asir.
Well, yes, I would love to, but right here in Zubaida's garden, we've lit that up with all the same colors and lighting. So it is nature in there. There are palm trees and different green, and it's a garden, you know, in the between the two rooms of the exhibition. So we have done that. But I think what's going on in Alula and all these areas is amazing, yeah. And, you know, lighting in situations like that, it has to be more than just lighting. It has to be something conceptually very, very interesting, which would be a fantastic challenge for anyone to do. You know, and you'd have to be working as well with the natural light and what we're calling man-made light in order to be respectful of that, of the place, as we tried to be here. You know, here there's a lot more leeway because it's an enclosed garden and it's part of the experience of the show to be able to get in there and really pump up a lot of color.
Nice.
But yeah, I wouldn't do that in Alula, promise.
Thank you. And Khalid, also very beautiful projects in the south of Saudi, in Abha. So I wanted to understand, you integrated the project as part of nature in terms of the design. What about the sustainability in terms of the electricity, the sewage? Is that have been considered as part of this project, or going to be included in your future projects? Because sustainability is a big part of for us at Vision 2030.
Yes, and I'm saying, I'm just going to answer about in this kind of project. One of the projects is Sahu. Yes, we're using the grey water and the rainwater to use it in the house, but we don't use, to be honest, any kind of system that solar panel and this kind of thing. But for also to one of the things that we keep saying about if we're respecting also the nature that is there, in a way that we're actually covering one of the things that is relating to the sustainability. Because sustainability is also, it's not just about materials, it's not about systems, it's about also ideas. If you have some ideas that can keep it sustainable and that kind of building can function for a long time, and you can feel it like it's apart from that kind of, let's say, area, this is also reflecting some side of sustainability. We're facing a lot of things in some projects now. I'm saying about in Riyadh here. You can see a lot of buildings just starting to demolish, and they demolish it and rebuild it. And in Jeddah, they're trying to demolish all this kind of building. And that is one of the things that we keep saying about. Imagine if that building is designed is not in the right way, and but they have all these kind of systems, meaning about solar panels, water gray, and this kind of thing. And after 10 years, that building you cannot use it because you cannot reuse that kind of spaces. You're going to demolish it again. Meaning about it's going to reflect also the sustainability of the building. Meaning about the timing of that. Yeah, for sure it's important for us, but sometimes I can keep explaining. If you have amazing clients, they can understand and they can respect that kind of thing. Yes, we can reach to that goal. And from our side, we should teach also and explain to the people what is the value for that kind of thing. And we believe that there are big value there, but there are a lot of, let's say, the huge discussion with us saying, well, you have a clients, they will, if we're trying to explain, they should invest in that kind of thing. It's become some hard from our side too, but we, as an architect, yes, we believe more about also in designing, to design something timeless, because timeless is also reflecting, in a way, sustainability. Yeah, I hope that I answer.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add, I also have an amazing client.
السلام عليكم. أنت ابن معالي الفريق عبد العزيز الهنيدي ونعم والله. I had the chance to meet his father 13 years, about 10 years ago. He's an amazing leader and national hero of Saudi Arabia.
Thank you, thank you.
And I met him, and he was humble, and he brought us a lot of ideas and wisdom to our. And I worked in King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology. You mentioned that we demolishing buildings, and I noticed something in particular in Riyadh and other Saudis. Our buildings are aging so quickly. You walk through streets of Rome, for example, or New York, maybe in DC. You see buildings like 800, in Rome, of course. We walked in streets like 1,000 years old, and buildings like 500 years old. But in Saudi Arabia, you barely see a building that's like 30 or 40 years old. They age quickly, and we destroy them. This is very, I think, I'm not sure, that's because we couldn't, or we were not able to build our own style, our own Saudi style, our own Saudi style of buildings or design in general. Look, for example, we import things. Marbles were not in Saudi Arabia. If you ask my the grandfathers in particular, they will not understand even the word marbles. Now it's everywhere. This building is designed with a special Saudi kind of thinking and material, but in most of our houses, marbles are used everywhere, and it's imported. I think this is another issue when we design, and especially in different kind of designs in Saudi, we import things, we import material, we import culture as well. You mentioned Abha, and I was in Baha last year, I think, or 2 years ago. They keep cattle in the first floor of the house. The cattle in the first floor. The second floor, I think, for the kitchen or something else. Then the third floor is for the guests and the family. In central part of Riyadh, of Saudi Arabia, cattle or animals are kept away from the house, far. But you see these kind of concepts of designs, we just neglect them and destroy them, and I don't know where we came up with this. Maybe you are the experts here. How did it come up with this design? Majlis, Gallat, Salah, it's not there. So my remark, I don't think it's a remark, a question, why we couldn't build create our own concept of design rather than importing concepts, importing materials, rather than build it our own selves.
I think one of the main thing that in the past, and now I'm speaking about 80s and 90s, in that time it's very easy to build. It's very easy to, if you want to do a building here in Riyadh, I'm saying about regulations, you just need a really contractors, and you can build. You need to have someone to design it for you, or someone to take in, let's say, a briefing and explain that. You just hire a contractor, and you can build it with your own experience, just to build all the spaces that you think that is.
Yani the role of designer wasn't that much important.
Yeah, it's not important, and no one's actually know about that. What I'm saying about this kind of problem. It's not about that people in that time didn't understand it, but that kind of thing, or they not evaluate that kind of thing. But they aren't known. There are architects, there are interior, there are designers that can take care about that kind of thing. They trust more about, until today, they trust more about who's going to build it exactly, the contractor. He's going to build, who's going to take the big amount of the money as a contractor. He's the most important one. And that time, what was happening in that time, we have a lot of same building, a lot, but they change it, one of the stone, one of that cladding now, and this kind of thing, and to give just, let's say, a different, or you can give this kind of, let's say, sorry, I'm saying like a makeup, like a design about something that is not usual, or it's not, let's say, a form. And that's why you can see why our building is not staying on, because it's not designed, and there's no value for it. To demolish it also, then you can see now a lot of the buildings that people that, let's say, our businessmen, they own this kind of building, our developers, when they calculate it by numbers, to demolish it is better and rebuild it again, because there's no value about that. And this is what we keep saying, because this is one of the big mistakes I was saying about it's happening in Saudi Arabia, or in Jeddah, one of the cities. Really, it's have some areas.
It's a new era. We're moving to a new something.
Exactly. Yeah. But sometimes really what's happening in Jeddah, I'm just giving an example. This is the best way to fix that, because there's no value to fix something there. You cannot really fix in that kind of neighborhood and try to adapt with it. No.
We have to remove it,
remove it and build it right from the beginning, because there are a lot of things you cannot see it. I'm saying about infrastructure. didn't
Yeah.
know how it's happening. Yes, and
تمام والله يعني thank you. طبعا they ask questions. I would like to ask questions if you allow me. I'm so happy and you allow me to stand up. I clap to say thank you so much for what you did for us. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone. يعني thanks for Joanna. Thanks for Khalid. It's amazing. I loved it. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone. Joanna, thank you. Amazing, amazing. Khalid,
You're
wallah.
still on a hot mic.
Let me remove it.
It's my pleasure to meet you, Allah.